Hello everybody, Dave Neal here. Let's jump right into the story. This might be the most dramatic storyline in the history of the Bachelor franchise. It is bananas. Let's just get right into it. Rachael Kirkconnell and Matt James, the drama continues. Let's let Reality Steve break this down. He just went on Instagram TV and gave a very thorough explanation. I mean, Reality Steve, God bless the man. It's like he's auditing their relationship. He has receipts and sources and time codes. This guy's all over the place. There's no reason not to believe what he's saying. After this video, he then gets a DM from the third girl, the second girl, the third wheel of this relationship, who wants to share her side of the story. So we have Rachael Kirkconnell goes to New York City to rekindle her relationship with Matt. He's sending out false information to different sources to make him look like the good guy, when in fact we find out he had another entree on a back burner, if you will. Let's play all this. Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Fascinating stuff on a Friday afternoon. Stay for the whole thing. At the end, I'm going to play the conversation. I haven't even listened to that one between Steve and a lady named Grace. So let's just play this right here.
In the middle of this since Tuesday, and I will explain that as well, because there's just half truths and half stories being given in the stuff that you've read in E! and Us Weekly, and that Dukes Moy stupid Instagram post from last night as well, or this morning. So I just wanted to fill you in here, and what I'm going to say is this. The information that I'm going to tell you today is coming directly from inside Rachel's camp. That doesn't mean it's false, and it doesn't mean it's biased. This is the truth because, number one, I've seen text messages that back this up. And number two, this is coming from somebody that, one, is not her cousin, and two, is not Rachel's mother. I know a lot of you seem to think that. I don't know why you're hung up on that. I can tell you flat out, 100%, it's not coming from either of them. But it's coming from someone who knows everything that's going on about this situation, who has shown me text messages, and who has shown me enough evidence, so to speak, to know that this is 100% the true story. I know a lot of you will say, there's two sides to every story, Steve. You're just telling it from Rachel's perspective. Yes, I am telling it from the Rachael camp perspective. However, this is the actual truth. I don't know how else to explain that, because one side is trying to cover their ass, and that's Matt's side, clearly. If someone from Matt's side wants to reach out to me, I would love to put my evidence and what I know up against theirs and tell them to their face, you need to be a little bit more impartial. And just because you know Matt or Matt's your buddy, you have to understand the narrative that him and his camp are spinning in the media right now is gaslighting, it's manipulative, and it's bullshit. So, with that said, let's move forward. So, the first thing was on Tuesday afternoon, before I went live with Ashley Spivey, I had tweeted out that Matt and Rachael were together in New York. Just to let everybody know, this was Matt and Rachael are together in New York. They're definitely not over. I think 30 minutes after that, a picture popped up of them walking across the street in New York. So it was confirmed that obviously Rachael was in New York. That's not news now that Rachael was in New York this week. After I got off the live with Ashley, I was contacted in a DM by somebody who told me, a source that said, Steve, you need to look into this because this Matt-Rachael thing that you just posted about and that they're together in New York and looking to get back together is really weird because you might want to look into a girl named Grace from Florida. I did. And Grace from Florida, real name, real person. You can even go check Matt's Instagram followers to see if he's following a Grace. Since this all broke, he has since blocked her and unfollowed her. But at the time, on Tuesday, when this happened, he was following her. He's no longer anymore, so you're not going to find her. But with that said, I was able to confirm the story And this is what the story was.
Wild stuff.
I was notified on Tuesday after I knew that Rachael was with Matt in New York that on Sunday night, 2 nights previous, Matt was trying to hook up with a girl named Grace.
Oh, boy.
He has a past with Grace. That past, once he was with Rachael, never overlapped because he basically ghosted Grace once he got off the show and was with Rachael. Congratulations, Matt. Let's all give him a hand.
Pulling a Jed, by the way. We call that a Jed.
Conversed with another woman while he was in a relationship with Rachael, so good for him. But
They say, try it like Wyatt. Okay.
the second Matt and Rachael broke up right after Valentine's Day, he immediately hit Grace back up. So what the story that was told to me was on Sunday night, Matt was still in Miami. Grace is in Florida. Matt hit her up. Knowing that Matt was leaving the first thing Monday morning out of Miami, he wanted Grace to drive and see him on Sunday night.
Postmates,
I
we call
believe
that.
the text message was 9:30 or 10:30 at night.
If this isn't fascinating, guys, I don't know what
So
is.
Matt texted a woman in Florida at 9:30 at night, 10:30 at night, Sunday night, knowing
Different area codes, though.
next morning, and asked this woman to drive to come see him before he left. Okay. Knowing Rachael was coming to New York to see him in 2 days.
He and Rachael never stopped talking. They were talking every day.
To almost backtrack a little bit before this and now say, I can report one of the things that came out in the Us Weekly story a couple hours ago, or an hour ago or whatever, was that Matt and Rachael have been in contact ever since the finale aired. And that is 100% true.
Here's the Us Weekly.
Matt and Rachael have been talking and FaceTiming every single day since the finale aired because Matt has told Rachael specifically over and over and over again, he's in love with her, he wants to be with her, he wants to make it work out, and this is what he wants in his life. He wants to be with Rachael. Talked every day since March 15th, and we are at April 9th. So when I was informed on Sunday night about this Grace girl in Florida that he tried to basically booty call, let's call it what it is, on Sunday night, I went to my contact that is not Rachel's mother and not Rachel's cousin
Team Rachael, I guess,
and
right?
said, I know Rachael is in New York with Matt. She probably needs to know this. Just want to throw it out there. So they asked me a bunch of questions. Hey, what's going on? What is that? So I showed them the legitimacy of who Grace was. And they're like, whoa, okay. So that was not relayed to Rachael until yesterday morning. But it was being discussed behind the scenes of Rachael needs to know. She's literally out there on a trip. And now I'm going to go into the E story that broke, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to read you direct quotes from the E story and tell you how factually incorrect they were. Number one, Rachael has been trying to reach Matt, and he agreed to see her. That's how they said this trip for Rachael going to New York came about. Absolutely 100% factually incorrect.
False
That
E-News.
is not the case.
Not the case.
That makes it seem like Rachael has been begging to see him, and he finally relented and said, okay, come to New York.
Shoddy
Not the
journalism.
case. He has been up Rachel's ass for 3 weeks, ever since the finale aired. They talk and FaceTime every day. He tells her he loves her. He tells her he wants to be with her. He tells her she's the only one for him. That's how the New York trip came to be. The other thing is, Matt paid for Rachel's trip to New York.
Boom!
So this
E-News, you're getting out-journaled by a couch potato.
let her come.
Disgraceful.
No, he bought the ticket.
No offense, Steve.
I've seen the receipt.
Saw the receipt. Ticket
Another
receipt.
thing from the E story. A second source explains she's been in New York for a few days visiting friends. Quote, Rachael and Matt are completely just friends. He has no intentions of dating her in the future, the insider adds. Again, absolutely 100% factually incorrect based on the words that come out of Matt James' mouth to Rachael Kirkconnell. That's not what he's been telling her for the last 3 weeks. I want to be friends. It's, I want you back. I'm in love with you. I want to be with you. Quote, everything discussed on the After the Final Rose still stands, according to the second source, who notes that Matt is not looking for a relationship. Again, factually incorrect. This is not what he's been telling Rachael for the last 3 weeks. In fact, he's been telling her the complete opposite. He wants to be back together with her. He wants to be in a relationship with her.
Yikes.
Another thing from the E story, need further proof their relationship is platonic. A third separate source also confirms they are not back together and simply friends. So there you have it. Well, no, not so there you have it.
Wow, they printed it.
When
Must be
Rachael
true.
went to New York, that is the first time they've seen each other since After the Final Rose. So technically, I guess you could say, no, they weren't back together the first time they saw each other. But everything on that trip, he bought the ticket. She flew out there strictly for a few days with him. And they were absolutely 100% together on that trip. I think I don't need to spell that out for you. Okay, so that's the E story. 4 things from that story that are just factually just not correct. But the reason E reported them, and I can tell you this, is because Matt's camp is the one that's telling E this. And Matt's camp is the one that's telling Us Weekly this. And I can prove this to you and tell you this because Us Weekly contacted the person that I speak to on Rachel's side and said, this is the story we are going to run. This is the story that Matt's people have. I don't know if they spoke to Matt specifically, if they spoke to one of Matt's friends and Matt approved it. But Us Weekly informed Rachel's side, we're going to run with this story today. And that's where they notified me and said, hey, Us Weekly's going to run with the story, and it's all bullshit because Matt's telling them because he's trying to cover his ass. And I said, okay. So Rachael is in New York, gets there Tuesday, with him on Tuesday, with him on Wednesday. I'm talking, and I confirm that the Grace story from Florida Sunday night is legitimate. I inform Rachel's side of this and say, hey, just to let you know, I think she's being played because someone just came to me and said this. And they're like, okay, let's figure out what to do. Thursday morning, yesterday morning, Rachael is notified about Grace. And confronts Matt about it.
We have Grace's side coming up. Stick around.
I think I need to back up here real quick.
It's a little complicated, but this is a Pulitzer nominated.
Wednesday,
this guy's doing the Lord's work.
I was in discussions and saying, like, look, is there a way, like, basically Matt was lying to Grace about Rachael being in New York. Like, literally flat out lying to her face. Because I said, hey, is Matt saying he's not with Rachael right now? And they said, yes. And I said, you need to specifically ask him, is Rachael with you right now? And is she there because you invited her?
I want to know who Matt's source is and why
That was asked to Matt.
why they're so worried
Matt
about their
did not
image.
respond in a text, but called Grace back and said, quote, I would never try and get with you Sunday night if that were the case. So when Grace was confronting Matt about, is Rachael with you right now? He flat out called her back and said, I would never do that to you.
Grace is
saying
coming up
no.
next.
So denied that Rachael was even with him, to this Grace girl, who he tried to get with Sunday night. So Thursday morning comes, and Rachael is notified about Grace. Rachael confronts Matt about Grace, and I actually also forgot.
Matt paid Rachel to go see him. A day earlier, he was trying to booty call Grace. Rachel finds this out the morning she's with Matt, probably in his bed.
Sushi dinner
Rough.
is when he responds back to Grace and says this to her over the
He's
phone.
like playing Mrs. Doubtfire.
So he's with Rachel, goes and gets a sushi dinner, tells Grace this, I would never do that to you. Goes back and is with Rachel the rest of the night. Thought that was a kind of funny story, so I want to throw that in. But yeah, so he's telling Grace, I'm not back together with her, nor is she here. Or, I would never do that to you. And yet, he did. Because I was like, I don't know what to tell you, but he is doing it to you because she's there. And so Thursday morning comes, Rachel finds out about Grace and confronts Matt on it and says, I'm being told that you tried to get with somebody in Miami on Sunday night. What's the deal?
Mrs. Doubtfire.
And Matt says, basically beats around the bush and says, doesn't mean anything to me. That wasn't the case. I was trying to fill up a last spot for a party. We need to fill out our table. Matt James, pretty famous, I'd say at this point, over 1 million followers. Could probably find somebody else that he doesn't have a female past hookup with to fill his table on Sunday night in Miami. But, you know, whatever. Give him the benefit of the doubt.
Getting paid to party.
He tried to get this girl to fill out a table spot and hanging out in Miami Sunday night. Well, come to find out that not true, because when Grace told him, I'm not going to see you on Sunday night, I don't even think I even got to that point. Grace didn't, by the way, Grace did not hook up with him Sunday night, nor did she go see him because he wanted her to drive to go see him. She didn't do it. But he did call her and say, she's like, I don't feel like going to a party right now. I don't feel like, and he's like, well, maybe we can have time to ourselves. So it was clear that Matt wanted to be with her on Sunday night, but she never did. So, and I kind of said this when I was relaying it to people. I'm like, look, if this happened 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have said anything. But the fact that 2 days before he knew Rachel was arriving, a ticket that he bought for her, I think her side needed to, I think it somehow needed to get
Reality Steve just ripping, I mean, good info to have.
Wrong with me stepping in. Someone came to me to say that. You might say, why didn't Grace go directly to Rachel? I don't know. But I think it shows the trust that people have in me that I can report and get information to people like, hey.
He's not lying.
I'm just trying to, Rachel should know this. But I didn't realize how deep they were into that Rachel and Matt thing until I relayed the story, and I'm like, okay, this is a lot worse than I thought. So Rachel confronts Matt with it on yesterday morning, and Matt basically tries to downplay the Grace stuff, or already said the lie, like I said, about how he said, oh, I was just trying to get her to fill out a spot at a table or a party that we were doing.
A decent lie. Not
true, because he called Grace on his, hey, I'm going to get sushi, Rachel, be right back, and he gets on the phone with another girl that he's talking to and says, you know, maybe you can, you know, it's, the whole thing is so convoluted.
Classic
and
movie.
so weird. And this guy, I almost want to applaud Matt for just the effort he's putting out into playing two women at the same time.
Exhausting.
So, again, applaud Matt James. Excellent job, Clout James.
Oh boy,
job.
Bro.
So,
Life. Wow.
So, yesterday morning, she confronts him, and Matt denies it, says that she's nothing, and Rachel essentially said, walked out on Matt.
Yikes.
And we're done. And so Rachel with the girl, I just want to make another thing clear. Rachel hanging out with the girls from her season, Abigail and Chelsea and whoever else she was with yesterday. This trip was to see Matt James because he booked her flight, and it was for them to see each other and work on their relationship. The reason that she was with the girls yesterday is because she took her suitcase and got the hell out of Matt's apartment when she found out about Grace. And basically he got caught with his pants down. And she left.
So the girls were there to consult
Called up the girls, hung out with them yesterday. So here's Us Weekly's story. These are quotes from Us Weekly's story. They wanted to keep it a secret, but they got caught walking around the city. He flew her to New York City. They've been working on their relationship privately over the past few months and taking the next steps to get back together. They spoke and FaceTimed daily. That part is actually true because I've just said that to you in this live. However, They wanted to keep it secret, but they got caught walking around the city. Absolutely 100% not true. Matt was the one who specifically told Rachael that he wanted to go out to dinner and he didn't care if they were seen. Another quote, Matt was not looking for a romantic relationship with Rachael after he ended it with her. He's tried to make it clear to her that he just wants to be friends and support one another as they both have gone through this journey together.
Yikes.
Matt is a caring and supportive person, so he wouldn't just block her out of his life completely. Again, you have to remember, Us Weekly is getting this directly either from Matt James himself or his PR team because, I mean, who else would write a sentence like that? Totally in support of Matt and where he stands in this relationship.
Very true.
Matt not looking for a romantic relationship with Rachael after he ended it with her. He's tried to make that clear to her that he wants to just be friends and support one another. Again, couldn't be further from the truth because every day since the finale, he's told her he loves her, he's told her he wants to be with her, and he wants to work on their relationship together. So for them to say that he's always made it clear to her that he wants to be friends is complete bullshit and couldn't be more wrong. But, I mean, that's his side feeding their story to Us Weekly to make him look less bad. So where we're at now is after Rachael left Matt's apartment in a huff yesterday, very upset, crying, because she literally went back to him thinking this 3 weeks of this love bombing that he was giving her was going to lead to something in the future. She finds out about this Grace girl yesterday morning and says that's it. Yesterday afternoon, Rachael and Grace both spoke to each other, swapped stories, and realized what was going on. Grace told Rachael all the things that Matt said to her. Rachael told Grace all the things that Matt said to her, and they realized this guy is playing both of them. So, so the post this morning from Dex Moy, and I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, but good, because I hate the crap that they spew. They posted on their Instagram account, someone I know sat next to Rachael and her friends at dinner last night. They were going through text messages between Matt and Rachael. Rachael was upset and started crying at dinner. Again,
the fact that Rachael and Grace had a conversation, donezo for Matt James. This relationship is done.
With her best friend that lives in New York. It was just the two of them, so it wasn't a group of people. She wasn't reading text messages that Matt sent her because since yesterday morning when Rachael left Matt's apartment in a huff with her suitcase, they have not spoken. He has not reached out to her. He has not said a word to her. So she wasn't reading any text messages between her and Matt. So that's wrong. But again, this is an Instagram account that you can send them anything and they just post it. Yeah. So again, why I always had an
There's
issue
no
with
validating
that.
sources.
So I just have some random notes here. So basically where we're at right now is Matt has been caught with his pants down and he is in full complete spin mode on how to keep his image, clean or whatever. Like,
we're going to cut that off right there, guys. You can go watch the rest of it on Reality Steve's Instagram TV. I did want to play the other Instagram live that he just did. So then he just kind of regurgitates what he said. I got to give Reality Steve credit. To be honest, even though I cover Bachelor stuff, aside from pulling his tweets and this and that, I don't really absorb much of his content, his podcast and all that. But I totally support it. I'm a busy man. But I have to say, he comes off very measured. He comes off trying to get both sides, at least, trying to respond, knowing how the media game works, that while Matt James was getting his side out to the media, it wasn't a fair side, and he had receipts from both sides. This is what happens immediately after Reality Steve goes live, which was just moments ago. He gets a DM from Grace saying she wanted to share her side. This is fascinating. I haven't listened to this, so let's start this it takes him a few minutes to kind of figure out to get her on board. So let's start this right from where he gets her on board. There it is. Let's start it right here. I haven't listened to this. I don't know what Grace is going to say, but just to reiterate, Grace was booty called. Again, this is the version of the story Reality Steve says. We'll see if she's about to confirm it. Grace was booty called on Sunday night by Matt James when he was in Florida and she was in Miami. 2 days before, Matt James was flying Rachael Kirkconnell to see him and repair their relationship. Let's see what Grace has to say and see if it all lines up. Reality Steve's nervous. Look at him. He's nervous.
Hey,
Hello.
Grace.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, grand. Just grand. It's been quite a time.
So right after I got off with my live, you texted me and said, let's go live. So I don't even know why you want to do this, but
Okay.
I know people want to hear from you.
Watching your live, I couldn't watch the whole thing. I was working, but I just wanted to clarify a couple things about the timeline and the storyline and what happened with Matt and I and
He's nervous.
how it got to Rachael. So basically,
Right.
I would say I had a romantic friendship with Matt before the show.
Romantic friendship.
And then he went on the show and he found love, and that's great. Happy for him. No issues there. I hold no grudge towards Matt otherwise there. And then we, casually talked after they broke up, like very casually. Never made plans to meet up. And then didn't hear from him until Sunday, which it's been like a month, I guess, and since we last talked.
Well, he tried to reach out to you after he broke up on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, no, he just would, started responding to me again, like casually we talked about like key lime pie and like my job and his life and how he was doing and,
Key lime pie.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Connect Four, all those things. And
Look at these comments.
then Sunday, it was like 8:00. I had just worked. I was so tired. It was like, I'd worked from 5 a.m. to like 6 p.m. It was crazy. I wasn't going to go out, but I was thinking maybe I was going to.
Strong women
And
here.
Matt texts me out of the blue. And he says, what are you doing this week? And I was like, shouldn't be too busy, but like Mondays I always have off. And he says, why don't you come down to Miami for the night? And I was like, sounds fun. Like, could be a change of scenery. And I called him and I was like, I'm just like really tired, so I have to think about it. And, and he was like, oh, well, we could have like a quieter night if that's what you want. And I was like, oh, like, let me shower, think about it. Decided not to go. I just went to bed. Then 2 days later, didn't think much of it. I saw that he was trying to get back together with Rachael.
Grace for Bachelor in Paradise.
It just didn't sit right with me. I just felt like Rachael was so in love with him, and for him to be trying to like contact me and hang out with me, someone who's had past romantic relationships with 2 days prior in Miami, it was like, it didn't sit right with me, and I felt like I had to say something for Rachel's sake. So I contacted Reality Steve, and I was the one who said, hey, listen, interesting that you say that, like, this might be something Rachael needs to be aware of. And she did find out, and, Rachael and I have talked, but that's all I wanted to clarify.
Can I relay the one story that I totally forgot about when I was doing the live, which is, we can talk about the, you and Matt knew each other pre him
Yes.
being named the Bachelor.
Yes.
You actually hung out with the quarantine crew at some point.
Briefly. Passing, yes.
Yeah. But
It's not a quarantine
after
then.
Matt was named the Bachelor, either you can tell the story or I can tell it. What happened after Matt was named the
So
Bachelor?
Matt and I were talking, super casually throughout all last winter.
Yeah.
Very casually. And, no shame in that. Like, he was not the Bachelor or even trying to be the Bachelor at that point. He was just a random guy who I was talking to. Seemed like a nice guy. And then he was announced, we went on like a date or two. Then he was announced as the Bachelor a couple days after we went on a date. And then we continued to talk. We went on another date. And he tried to get me to go on the show and nominate me to go on the show. And I said no. I just got like this like new job. I didn't want to do it too much. I also thought I'd be the villain because I already knew him. And then, a couple months down the line, I was like, oh, maybe I'll go on the show. My job isn't really working out. Like, why not?
Nuts.
And then had a couple of interviews. I was like, okay, Matt, I'm ready to go on the show, I guess. And a producer contacted me, had a couple of interviews, didn't get on the show, got a better job, and,
But he was trying to cast his own show with
Yeah.
girls that he, well,
All
I
in
don't want to
on-
say bunch of girls, with you at least. He was trying to cast someone that he knew on
Yeah.
his season.
I mean, I'm not the victim here by any means. Like, I'm completely fine. I never even,
Yeah.
We
Matt
love you,
and I,
Grace.
I was completely fine with Matt. I just think that, trying to hook up with somebody and then 2 days later, talking to this girl who's saying she's in love with you and like you're going to get back together with, it was shady and I wasn't okay with it.
Yeah. And when you spoke to Rachel, you had found out that he planned this, like when he contacted you on Sunday night for clearly what was, we can all see what that was for. He already knew Rachel was coming. Like I said, like this was a plan, and he paid for Rachel's, flight out there. And this is the whole issue that I had with it. And I'm glad that, I was able to get, relay your side over to Rachel and give them a heads up, because it was shitty. He's not a good liar is basically what it comes down to. Like look, guys do this, especially guys in the Bachelor franchise do this all the time, where they are talking to multiple women, and the person that they're talking to at the time, they're making believe that they're number one, when in reality you're not. You're one of many. And unfortunately, both of you got caught in this, and it sucks,
Yeah.
So
I honestly, I don't feel like I'm been caught in it. I feel like Rachel is really a victim here.
yeah.
I'm completely fine. I'm living in my little horse girl world and I'm fine. But
Horse girl.
I just,
Were you
how
right-
many
were you
times
right-
do you see these guys who like are just two-timing you, and at a certain point it's not okay. Like it's just not okay. So
Were you
felt
riding
like-
horses earlier today? Were you riding horses earlier today?
yeah, I mean it's my job.
Oh, are you an equestrian?
Yeah, it's a good time.
Oh, okay.
Grace the equestrian.
It's a grand time. So, all the best to Rachel. We've been in Cox. I hope she finds someone better. And Matt, I think Matt was in it for fame, which I had no issue with. I mean, I think it's hard not to go on that show for fame. You aren't paid. And I think the chance of finding love is like dismal.
He is
so if
paid.
you're not going on it for fame, what are you going on it for? Is how the way I see it. But at a certain point, when you start changing your character and lying and gaslighting and trying to do all these things to protect your image and your fame, is when I sort of have an issue.
Wow.
So all power to you if you go on the show for fame. But in Matt's case, I just feel like it reached a point where it got a little too much.
Yeah, no, it's almost like he got in over his head and lost track of all his lines. Or
Is this
how
real
he was
life?
going to go manage this. Now, I don't know now that this is out there and you came on, I don't know what he's going to do from here. I'm sure he's going to try and spin it in some way, try and discredit you or say like she's nothing, or no, like he tried to tell Rachel, like, oh, she's nothing. And I tried to get her to show up as a +1 to fill a party seat or whatever. And it's like,
Right. Like Matt James can't fill a table in Miami.
yeah, exactly. Oh, by the way,
Sure.
someone wants to know your skincare routine.
My skincare routine?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, wearing a hat.
It's dismal. I mean, I'm out in the sun all day. I wear sunglasses to protect my eyes.
We love Grace.
That's it.
Okay.
Bachelor in Paradise, 2021.
Right, good.
People seem to like your skin. Well, anyway, thank you for that, Grace. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. And
You're welcome.
I'm glad you were able to put a name to it. Because, look, I think most people believed the live that I just did, but when you can actually put you to it now, it's just like, okay, I wasn't making shit up. Like, I wouldn't.
Exactly. And I'm, people who know me, like, they know that I'm not, they know the story. They know that I'm not, telling a lie. So the people who know me, as long as the people who know me agree with me, it's all kosher. It's all grand.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Grace.
All right. Best to you, Steve.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Wow. If this
So
isn't
there's
the number
Grace.
one,
We need
story.
we need more Grace. I mean, what's the
room for
we need
Grace.
more Grace in this world, and now it's like literally Grace in this world.
More Grace on Bachelor in Paradise.
Thanks for Grace. I didn't know that she was coming on. Her and I had spoken recently, and I was like, hey, do you want to do this?
You can tell he looked so excited and nervous.
Maybe on a podcast or whatever. And she's like, oh, we'll see. But literally right after I ended my live, she texted me and she's like, let's go live right now. I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
So just wanted to put the last one up. I will put this one up as well on my Instagram, my IGTV. So it's saved, and you can check it out there.
So go give Reality Steve a follow on his Twitter and Instagram. I know we just reacted to pretty much all of that, the last 2 videos. Incredible stuff happening. I got Post-it notes everywhere. Grace for Bachelor in Paradise. Let me know what you guys think. If you want, leave a voicemail. Here's the number. I'm dragging it right there. 401-213-9828. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think Matt will do next now that, the cat is out of the bag. Sometimes the best thing for communication is just to get everything out there. And Grace came out. She talked. Reality Steve came out. The dude's clearly got sources. People trust him. He doesn't give his sources up. And he just felt like people were getting a wrong deal. He felt like Rachael Kirkconnell was getting a wrong deal, that people weren't sharing her side of the story. And he wanted, and I'm sure he doesn't want to have to be the guy that breaks up their relationship, but the fact that Matt was doing that, playing way too many different angles, I'd love to hear what he have to say. Was it the pressure from different communities to make a decision? Was it? But either way, he shouldn't have been contacting Grace, a past hookup. The fact that he wanted Grace to be on the show, a girl that he used to hook up, basically friends with benefits. She called it romantic friendship with Matt, friends with benefits. Casually talked after they broke up. Here's from Matt on Sunday. Had to say something for Rachel's sake. There you have it, folks. Leave a voicemail. Let me know what you guys think. Hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment below, and we will stay up to date on this story, because I'll tell you what, Matt is going to have to share his side of the story. People are going to be demanding answers. We'll talk to you guys later. Happy Friday. Bye, everybody.